What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I've got probably one of the biggest questions I get asked most often, which is it worth upgrading from the C8 Stingray to the C8 Z06? So in this video we're going to be answering that question. We're going to compare just some of the facts related to each model, and I'll share my overall opinion. Just for frame of reference, so far I've owned two C8 Stingrays. So I've had a non-Z51 and a Z51 C8 Stingray. And obviously now I have a Z06. So I've driven both the Stingrays and the Z06 on tracks, so I'll give you my thoughts about that as well. To start off, I wanted to talk about the price difference. So I'm going to use the 2025 pricing from Chevy's website. So just so we're apples to apples, we're going to compare the starting MSRP of each car in its base trim. The Stingray starts at $69,000 and the Z06 starts at $116,000. If you pulled your calculator out, you'd see a difference of about $47,000. So that's a pretty significant difference. The question is, what exactly do you get between the Stingray and the Z06 that makes up that $47,000 difference? So like I said, I'm going to compare base to base of each model, and we're going to talk about what you get with the Z06 that you don't get with the Stingray. To kick us off, we're going to start about the wheels and tires and the difference between the Stingray and Z06. So with the Stingray, you get 19 by 8.5 fronts, 20 by 11 rears, and you get 245 front tires and 305 rear tires. For the Z06, you get 20 by 10 front wheels, 21 by 13-inch rear wheels, and the front tires are 275, the rear are 345. So the wheels and tires between the two are a massive difference. The OEM wheels of the C8 Stingray were one of the first things I felt like I immediately needed to change. I just didn't like the OEM style or the sizing, the fitment. So with the Stingray, I ended up going with 20 in the front, 21 in the rear, just like the Z06. But with the Z06, since I already love the fitment, I love the style of the wheels, the tires are super wide, I don't feel like I really need to do anything. So that's just one difference between the Stingray and the Z06 when it comes to wheels and tires. Overall with the Stingray, I probably spent about $5,000 to $10,000 on aftermarket wheels and tires. There's even more expensive options like fully forged where you're going to spend like $10,000 for the wheels alone. So that's just the difference. I consider that a savings on the Z06 because I don't feel like I need to spend 10 grand. The wheels are already perfect. While we're here, we should talk about the brakes. So the C8 Stingray had 4-piston Brembo calipers. The Z06 has 6-piston Brembo front calipers. And the rotors on the front and rear are 2 inches bigger than the Stingray rotors. Next, let's talk about the exhaust. So the Stingray comes standard with a general exhaust system that's very quiet from the factory. If you want to hear the exhaust, you need to pay extra for the performance exhaust. But even then, I felt like I needed an aftermarket exhaust, catback, to actually be satisfied with the exhaust tone. For the Z06, it comes standard with the performance exhaust. So compared to the Stingray, the sound inside and outside of the cabin for the Z06 is completely insane. It's the most perfect factory exhaust I've ever had between all my cars, the Hellcat, Mustang, and all the other Stingrays and Corvettes. So I'm really happy with the factory exhaust. Like I said, with the Stingray, I felt like I absolutely needed to go to aftermarket to get the sound I wanted. But with the Z06, it's perfect from the factory. So consider that a savings of about $5,000 there. Not just savings, but personally, I think the Z06 sounds much better and more unique with its flat plane V8. Here are some sound clips of the factory Z51 Stingray exhaust versus the factory Z06 exhaust. difference you get with the Z06 is obviously this wide body. I mean, it looks pretty crazy even here on camera, but the Z06 is over 3 inches wider than the Stingray. When you look at it in person, you can really tell the difference. The stance and the width just look super aggressive. And I guess you can wide body a Stingray. If you've looked at prices, they're about $7 grand plus labor, so still really expensive if you want to go wide body, but just the entire body of the Z06, the front bumper, rear bumper are unique. The side intakes are very different. It just looks very unique compared to the Stingray with a much wider body. Also, there's other differences like the rear duckbill spoiler, which I think is one of the best looking spoilers on basically any car. So there's a ton of little trim differences between the Stingray and the Z06, just pointing out a few. The base Stingray comes with standard suspension, so if you want to have the coilovers or you want MagneRide, you do have to add those as options, and they could total up to 10 grand. So with the base Stingray, if you want to lower the car, you have to get aftermarket lowering springs to be able to do that. An added benefit of the Z06 is it comes standard with magnetic ride control, which is nice to have. And also it comes with the performance coilovers, so if you wanted to lower your car an inch, you can just take the wheels off, lower it, and that's it. You don't have to get any aftermarket lowering springs. One of the biggest differences between the two models is obviously the difference in horsepower from the two different engines. The Stingray makes 490 horsepower and 465 pound-foot torque with its 6.2 liter cross-plane V8, whereas the Z06 makes 670 horsepower, 460 pound-foot torque with its 5.5 liter flat-plane V8. The Stingray redline is 6,500 RPM and the Z06 redline is 8,400 RPM. The 0 to 60 for the Stingray is 2.9 seconds, factory rated, and the Z06 factory rated 0 to 60 is 2.6 seconds. The quarter mile times from Chevy are listed as 11.2 seconds for the Stingray and 10.6 seconds for the Z06. So with the Z06, you see some drag strip figures, but you gain about 200 horsepower of a difference. And obviously on a track, the Z06 is much faster, especially on large tracks. Just given the power difference, I think the biggest difference in feeling is when you're at higher speeds. The Stingray kind of felt like it would fall flat on its face after a certain speed, but the Z06 just feels like it keeps pulling and pulling. So that's kind of the biggest difference. The 0 to 60 is pretty close, as you can see. So, for daily street driving, you're not going to feel the biggest difference. Just as another example, if you wanted to supercharge the Stingray because you thought, I'll just pay less for the Stingray, supercharge it and get it to around the 700 horsepower mark like the Z06. The supercharger kits are right around $20,000, give or take, plus labor. So that's just something to keep in mind. At that point, you're getting pretty close to the pricing for the Z06, so just something to consider. Last piece I wanted to touch on is the interior, and so most of the stuff between the Stingray and the Z06 interior are very, very similar, if not the same. For the Z06, obviously you get some more Z06 emblems within the interior, but one key point I wanted to mention is the Z06 comes standard with heads-up display. The Stingray does not. You have to pay about another $8,000 to get to the 2LT trim, and that's when it comes with heads-up display, so just something there I wanted to call out. In terms of track driving, I had a ton of fun with both cars.
Permit 4, start looking between your turn in and apex, they're here. Good, it's stuck, that was good. I can see that car was battling though. Stay on the brake a little bit longer through there. Power up. Firm on the approach. Gentle back left. Good. Run with me here. White. Second. Ease. See how much tighter in radius you are? White brakes. Smooth back left.
The track I was driving on was a short and small track, so there wasn't really enough space or long straights for the Z06 to have like a major advantage, but even still the Z06 obviously felt a little bit quicker. But with that said, the Stingray still felt extremely capable and probably good enough for 99% of drivers, including myself. So still was extremely fun in the Stingray, trying to push that car to its limits. There's probably a ton more differences, but I think those are the big ones. And so the question is it worth the $47,000 difference? And personally, my answer, without a doubt, is absolutely. The reason I'm saying that is just thinking back with my Stingray, I immediately needed to upgrade the wheels and tires, front splitter and side skirts, catback exhaust, and just seriously was considering a supercharger kit because I was used to Hellcat power and the Stingray felt a bit weak accelerating at higher speeds. And just thinking back, all that stuff cost me pretty close to just upgrading to a Z06. The huge $47,000 jump up to the Z06 is quite the leap, but as I mentioned, if you're like me who already planned to pay for a bunch of aftermarket upgrades to the C8 Stingray, personally I'd rather have that invested into the Z06, and it totally makes sense for the upgrade. And as mentioned, I'm extremely happy with the Z06. I don't feel the need to mess with the car or change everything like I did with the Stingray. With all that said, I was still extremely happy and grateful for the C8 Stingray. If you ask me for the best bang for buck on the car market today, I would still say the C8 Stingray, because just given the price, you get a mid-engine V8 with a 2.9 second 0 to 60, amazing track car starting at $69,000. I mean, it's insane to even say that. Most of my other cars, like the Mustang, Hellcat, the two Stingrays, I had those cars between 1 to 2 years, so not very long. A huge just comparison is with this car, I'm actually considering keeping it long term. I mean, that's how great this car is. In the comments, let me know what you guys think. Is it worth upgrading to the Z06? Any of you Stingray owners or Z06 owners, or even just fans of the car, give me your thoughts. Anyway, that's it for the video today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I had a fun time talking about the cars. As always, if you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'll try to get to those. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It always helps the channel out and greatly appreciate it. And yeah, thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.